Hello, everybody, and good morning. My name's Don Arleth, and you're watching World News, coming to you live from Warsaw. More Russian attacks overnight focused on the Sumy and Kharkiv regions. So far, no deaths have been reported, though 2 people were injured. Russia launched multiple strikes on Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region on Monday. The head of the Sumy Regional Military Administration reported civilian infrastructure was targeted. Emergency services were hard at work putting out the fires triggered by the attacks. No injuries have been reported so far. In the Kharkiv region, at least 2 people were injured and several buildings damaged when Russian drones targeted the Kupiansk district. Could the Ukrainian-Russian negotiations take a new turn? The recent successful Washington charm offensive of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán would suggest a meeting between U.S. and Russian officials is not yet off the cards. It comes as Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico says that the country will not back the plan to use frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine.
While Russia continues its relentless attacks on Ukraine, including ongoing strikes on energy infrastructure, Moscow's key foreign policy official Sergei Lavrov is suddenly coming to the Americans with his tail between his legs. On Sunday, it was reported that Lavrov is ready to meet with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. This comes after rumors of a fall from grace began brewing following Lavrov's Hungarian fiasco.
Putin had hopes for the second summit after Alaska in Budapest with Trump, to seek this kind of rapprochement between Russians and Americans. And Lavrov took such a compromising stance, showing no signs or even of readiness to negotiate in good faith.
The scrapping of the imminent Budapest summit results from a tense Lavrov-Rubio exchange on October 20th.
During this conversation, Lavrov was uncompromising. He was very tough. He was like, in the best Soviet tradition of Soviet diplomacy, like Mr. No. A very conservative, very hard-line approach, very tough approach, no seizing ground for any kind of reasonable compromises with Americans.
Following Hungary's successful charm offensive on Friday, with Prime Minister Viktor Orbán securing a 1-year exemption from U.S. sanctions on Russian oil, it would appear that the meeting between Trump and Putin may not be off the table just yet.
Now we are in quite a good position to open up a new chapter, let's say a golden age between the United States and Hungary.
We're talking, but we'll report on that later. Meetings with Putin. We were talking about that with Viktor. He understands Putin and knows him very well. And I feel that, I'm going to let you say what you think, but I think that Viktor feels we're going to get that war ended in the not-too-distant future.
And it would appear that this pro-Kremlin offensive is bound to continue amongst Europe's Moscow-aligned leaders, as Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico vowed to vote against the €140 billion reparation loan financed by proceeds from frozen Russian assets currently being mulled by the EU. These views, however, diverge from the broader bloc-wide outlook on Ukraine.
It seems like there's an understanding in many European capitals that a certain level of support to Ukraine should be maintained over the long term.
And as diplomacy seems increasingly a cat-and-mouse game, a clarification is in order.
In general, I think that it would be very, without exception, almost any Ukrainian would say that if it was up to him or her, he would ask the Europeans to take the Russian threat very seriously. Don't wait. Get ready now.
And it seems that these stark warnings have not only had an impression on European capitals, with the US Secretary of Defense drawing poignant historical parallels.
This is a 1939 moment, or hopefully a 1981 moment. A moment of mounting urgency. Enemies gather, threats grow, you feel it, I feel it. If we are going to prevent and avoid war, which is what we all want, we must prepare now.
For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Vladimir, thank you very much. Thank you.
In Belgium, 3 drones were spotted over the Doel nuclear power plant on Sunday evening, according to a spokesperson for the energy company Engie. Operations at the plant weren't impacted by the sightings. The incident near the plant in Antwerp follows several similar reports of mysterious UAVs flying close to Belgian infrastructure in recent days. On November 2nd, drones took off near the Klein-Brogel military base. 2 days later, drones were spotted over Brussels airport, causing operations to be suspended, as well as over Liège airport and near the Klein-Brogel, Florence, and Schaffen military air bases. According to Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken, the sightings near the military bases appear to be part of an espionage operation and have links to recent Russian airspace violations in Europe. Over 50 people were injured in Slovakia after 2 trains collided on Sunday. It's the second accident of this type in the past month. The crash took place near the Slovakian capital, Bratislava, on Sunday. One train hit the back of the other, injuring dozens of passengers. Over a dozen people were taken to hospital. According to a Slovakian Interior Minister, around 800 people were traveling on the trains at the time of the collision. It is the second rail accident in Slovakia in the past month. Another collision of 2 trains took place in the eastern part of the country on October 13th. 91 people were injured in that crash. Donald Trump's decision to give Hungary a 1-year exemption from Russian energy sanctions is not helpful for Ukraine, but it surely does help Moscow continue its war efforts, said John Sweet, a retired military intelligence officer and co-founder of Intercept 360, in an interview with TVP World.
He certainly does, but he also panders to the president. He tells the president what he wants to hear, and the president responds to that. I think the decision to give him a 1-year exemption is not helpful, at least for Ukraine, because it continues to put money into the Russian coffers in order for them to continue the war. So from that perspective, it doesn't help. But again, the president is trying to come to some sort of resolution. He thinks maybe that the best course of action would be to try Orbán. And Orbán obviously is an apologist for Russia. He likes the cheap energy. He's going to lobby for Russia. Now, I don't believe the majority of European allies feel the same way towards him as President Trump does. But nonetheless, that was the outcome of the meeting 2 days ago there in Washington, D.C.
On Sunday, U.S. President Donald Trump appointed a new special envoy to Minsk. John Cole, who previously helped negotiate the release of prisoners in Belarus, is expected to press the Lukashenko regime to free even more political prisoners. Since January, Trump has increased U.S. engagement with Belarus and its pro-Putin authoritarian leader, Alexander Lukashenko. In September, 52 prisoners were freed in Belarus, and the U.S. president urged Lukashenko to release 1,400 more detainees. September's release was the largest since Lukashenko came to power and comes at a time when the authoritarian leader is seeking closer relations with Washington. The United States closed its embassy in Minsk in February of 2022 after Putin used Belarus as a launch pad to send tens of thousands of troops into neighboring Ukraine. A minute of silence, wreath-laying, and a salute. Britain's King Charles, Prince William, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer paid tribute to fallen Polish heroes from the iconic 303rd Squadron. Of the nearly 3,000 pilots that flew in the Battle of Britain, Poles were the largest group of foreign nationals supporting the British Air Force in what's been called one of the major turning points of World War II.
These were the solemn scenes at today's Remembrance Sunday memorial event in the United Kingdom. The commemorations, held every year on the Sunday closest to November 11, also marks 80 years since the end of World War II and pays tribute to those who lost their lives in both world wars and later conflicts. and the courage of those who fought shoulder to shoulder with Britain's forces. Here in Poland, that legacy runs deep. At the RAF Liberator Memorial Stone in Warsaw, British Ambassador Melinda Simmons joined Polish officials to pay tribute to the Allied forces who died helping the 1944 Warsaw Uprising.
It is about remembrance, so everybody wears one in the week up to Remembrance Day, which is on this day. And Remembrance Day is about remembering it was initially established for First World War, but has recently come to mean remembrance for all people who have died in violent conflict. And so it's got very universal meaning that way. But the other meaning it has is future-looking, and it's a symbol of peace.
The ambassador says the spirit of remembrance also reflects the close bonds between the United Kingdom and Poland and their continued unity in standing up for freedom in Europe.
We still work as closely as we ever did. Those relationships are as close as they ever were, and we all want and are working for the same thing, which is for Ukrainian people and for European people to live in peace.
Among those remembered, the legendary Polish 303rd Squadron, the highest-scoring fighter unit of the Battle of Britain, whose bravery helped turn the tide of the war. Speaking to TVP World, historian Alina Nowobilska says their story still captures the imagination of future generations.
People remember there were more than just British pilots. These pilots went through incredible difficulties to try and even get to England, let alone fly planes in the Battle of Britain, because that's what they partook in. They partook in the Battle of Britain. It was a very hard and a very difficult fight for them. Many pilots were lost. Many pilots were even lost during testing.
Their bravery and optimism, she says, still serves as a source of inspiration.
They were pushed out of Poland in 1939. They had to escape, because either that or they'll end up in a prisoner of war camp. I mean, you can see in Ukraine all the brave soldiers coming out of there as well. And it's something that the 303 Squadron were just steadfast.
A day of solemn reflection and enduring gratitude for those who fought for the freedom that Europe continues to defend today. For TVP World, I'm Diana Skaya.
Could the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history finally be in sight? The United States Senate has just narrowly advanced a compromise bill which ensures that the government is funded through January 30th. Now that bill goes on to the House of Representatives for approval. The funding bill passed in the Senate on Sunday with the minimal required majority of 60 votes. It prohibits layoffs in federal agencies until January 30th and ensures back pay for all those federal employees who have not received paychecks due to the shutdown. The agreement, however, leaves out the health care subsidies to help lower-income Americans pay for private health insurance. The disagreement between the Democrats and Republicans over these subsidies was at the center of the now 41-day-long government shutdown. The Republicans, however, have maintained that they are open to return to the issue later. In order for the government to reopen, the proposed funding bill now has to pass the House of Representatives and be signed by the U.S. President.
We're going to start that, and we have Russell.
The White House announced on Sunday that China has decided to lift export controls on rare earth minerals. Now, the Chinese government has issued general licenses allowing the sale of raw materials such as gallium, graphite, and tungsten to the U.S., including to American manufacturers and their suppliers. According to the White House, the agreement is intended to provide American companies with stable access to materials necessary for the production of advanced technologies. Meanwhile, China is to benefit from the reopening of the market to its agricultural products. As part of the agreement, Beijing is also committed to halting exports of fentanyl precursors, easing restrictions on U.S. semiconductor companies, and increasing purchases of U.S. agricultural products.
We bring the ore up out of the ground. First we'll crush it and grind it.
And with that, we have run out of time here on World News. Thanks for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.